A lot of people think assertiveness is a communication skill, like it's something you learn, you practice, or you force yourself to do. Speak up more, say no, set boundaries, stop people pleasing. But for some people, assertiveness is not difficult because they lack communication skills. It's difficult because their nervous system was literally organized around other people. And I know this because that was me for most of my life. Being assertive was extremely hard for me, not because I was weak or I didn't know what I needed. It was because other people's comfort mattered more to me than my own well being did. And I don't mean that like in some kind of martyr type way. I mean that like literally. Their emotional experience in my presence carried more psychological weight than my own did. So if someone else was uncomfortable, I would override myself automatically. If someone else was disappointed, I would rearrange myself automatically. If someone else wanted something from me, I would feel guilty saying no, even if saying yes was detrimental to me. And what's interesting is that from the outside, this kind of behavior often can be interpreted as being kind, empathy, compassion, selflessness, easygoing. But internally, what was actually happening was self abandonment because I was not including myself in the equation. And this is something that I think many highly empathetic people struggle with without even realizing it, perhaps. Especially people who grow up in environments where connection felt tied to self sacrifice. Because when you grow up learning that keeping the peace matters more than your own internal reality, assertiveness doesn't feel healthy. It feels almost dangerous in a way. It feels selfish and mean and cruel, even disruptive. It feels like you're hurting people just because you have your own needs. And that's why people can teach assertiveness techniques all day long, but if your nervous system still associates self assertion with guilt, rejection, punishment, abandonment, conflict, or emotional instability, you will still override yourself automatically because the issue was never, how do I say no? The issue was, do I subconsciously believe I'm allowed to exist as a separate person? And that's the real issue. And honestly, healing this changed my entire personality, which is something that I still find fascinating. I used to test consistently as an INFP personality type for years and years. And after I healed my attachment style and went through the individuation process, my personality shifted to INFJ. Now, whether somebody believes deeply in personality typing systems or not isn't really the point. The point is that identity organization affects personality expression, attachment style affects personality expression, self concept affects personality expression. A person who is anxiously attached and externally oriented will often present very differently than someone who has developed internal security and a stable sense of self. Because when your identity is externally organized, your attention constantly goes outward. How are they feeling? What are they thinking? Are they upset with me? Am I disappointing them? Am I too much? Am I not enough? Am I creating discomfort? Am I allowed to take up space right now? That creates chronic self monitoring, and eventually you completely lose yourself inside of it because your orientation point becomes external instead of internal. And I think that's why assertiveness emerged naturally for me after healing instead of feeling forced. I didn't learn assertiveness in the traditional sense. I just stopped betraying myself, and that's different. I stopped overriding myself to maintain other people's comfort at my own expense. I stopped assuming everyone else's needs automatically mattered more than mine. And honestly, one of the biggest realizations I ever had was this: nobody else was putting me before themselves, and they shouldn't. Healthy people don't abandon themselves to love someone else. That's not healthy love, that's self erasure. But because I was unconsciously doing that for other people literally my entire life, I think some part of me expected that level of self sacrifice back in return. And when it never came, I would feel depleted, invisible, exhausted, and emotionally starved because I was pouring from a place that had no structure protecting it. And healing changed that. And it's not that I became selfish, but it's just because for the first time in my life, I started including myself too. And that's the difference. I'm not more important than other people, but I'm also not less important than other people either. And I know that sounds incredibly simple, but if you spent your entire life psychologically organized around external attunement, that realization changes everything. Because suddenly boundaries don't feel cruel anymore, assertiveness doesn't feel aggressive anymore, taking care of yourself doesn't feel selfish anymore. It just feels honest, balanced, and real. And I think true assertiveness is not something you force. I think true assertiveness is what naturally emerges once you finally believe that your own existence carries equal weight in the room.